for some help on how to come up with a better way to describe what a unit is, because we need more smaller units than we need larger units to keep locals housed and to have locals that can move from the first time they come here, where they might rent a studio unit, find a mate or friend, rent a 2-bedroom unit, start a family, and jump into a 3-bedroom unit, right? But if we always start at everything's one unit, we'll never have that diversity, because the builders are going to build what makes the most money. And the most money is the higher, bigger units. So that's why we don't see anybody building new studios or smaller units. Andy's probably, the project he's working on is one of the few projects we have out there where they're doing smaller units, because it fits the territory better. Right? Everything else is 3 bedrooms, 2 and 3 bedroom condos, 2 and 3 bedroom houses, all in the $700,000-800,000 range. So if we can, and Catherine, a couple of years ago at the Planning Commission, we looked at what they were doing in Europe and some other places, and their density for an acre was outrageous. I mean, remember that one on the corner?
Delightful density?
Delightful density.
That was in Paris.
Yeah, it was in Paris. I think they were all smaller units, and I think on that acre they had 250. Remember what that number was? Yeah. It's like a 5-story tall building, parking underneath. So I don't want the whole area to become outrageously dense, but you know, if you did the first half mile from the highway down the highway as a higher density level, that would give you enough room to allow to bring in that higher density. It puts everything in walking distance. It'd be more workable for our workforce and the families that live here, because they can walk to all the things that they need. We can do the bigger houses as we move out away from the highway. So that's where I started.
Okay. So thanks for that explanation, because we were a little vague on what that topic would be, but I think that's a good discussion there. I'd like to ask a question as well. You're talking about, you know, the first half mile, the first so many feet off the highway there. My only question would be about preserving some of that Highway 40 frontage there for the commercial development.
Well, absolutely.
Yeah.
Commercial on the first level, any kind of residential above it.
Okay. So I know that our code defines a house when it comes to water and sewer taps and so forth, using, you know, EQRs, which is a little different model. And I think our code even also breaks down the EQRs based on the size of the units.
Yeah, it does a little bit.
Okay.
I mean, EQRs is what?
Equivalent residential unit, I believe that's what it stands for, or something like that. It has to do with, you know, the water tap and how much water is demanded.
Because we did make changes to that, right?
A little, yeah. We did some.
Yeah, we did some incentivizing with that.
And we just completed a new EQR study recently on the wastewater side. I think we did on the water side.
Well, you guys will remember that we did this. We had a tap fee pegged to unit size, and we let that lapse.
Right.
So I think we got to look at it again. It was actually a fairly good approach to at least part of this problem, Parnell, to try and peg more the size of the unit more to the actual usage of our system, our infrastructure, and to help because one of the solutions to cost of housing is density. You're exactly right.
Right.
So, so I just was kind of, if you remember right, and I'm kind of on the cusp here, and I think I can at least talk about this now. The reason I didn't participate in that was because it would have benefited the Riverview project that I was in the midst of getting platted, and it has been platted now. So, but I would have been strongly in favor of keeping that. I'm not sure quite why I would let it lapse. I know it wasn't utilized, but it was a good start to this. So it would be good to bring that back to the table, I would think.
So it was a resolution for single family dwellings with a sliding plant investment fee based on the size of the structure.
Yes.
It wasn't applicable to multifamily. Okay.
Okay. So we'd have to make
a resolution for a set time limit that has elapsed.
Right. And part of that reason for that too was the move to allow smaller lots in Old Town here, because all our lots you have to have 2 lots to build on. And this would have allowed 2 units on a unit on the smaller lot too. So
Well, what allows that is the conditional use permitting process that we incorporated into the code. That allows the smaller structure
Right.
with the smaller dimensional setbacks.
But
So it's
the,
not just it's
Well,
more the conditional use process that allows for that rather than this sliding plant investment fee.
but the plan investment fee helped make that more attractive.
But nobody used it.
Right.
Now, do you know how many people have used the auxiliary dwelling unit? One or two?
A handful of people have come through the process. So that plant investment fee is 0.25. And the thought was that that would incentivize people to do that.
Right.
And the answer is
Not very much.
no incentive, not so much. But we have had several people come through the conditional use permit to create that smaller lot. So we've had probably, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6.
Are you talking about like the same size lot if they took out a trailer on Mill Avenue? Could they build a smaller unit there with that conditional use permit?
They have covenants on that subdivision that doesn't allow stick-built homes.
Right,
So they need to change their covenants.
right.
And I've had that discussion with HOA members over there, if that's what they want to do. But their water and sewer is all tied together, which is
Yeah.
another challenge.
Yeah.
Isn't that, well, I guess, isn't our zoning over there multifamily or is that the next road over?
Well, you want to pull up the zoning map, please? Thank you. But there is also a zoning map placemat in front of you all.
Yeah, I know.
You can laminate it and take it home.
Looked at the tiny little numbers.
Study it.
So, and you're
Red's
well
awful
familiar
close.
with our code, and
Yeah.
probably Russell too. I'm sure that staff has feedback on parts of the code that really do need our attention. And if it would be possible for them to highlight that before they move on to their new jobs, so we have an idea of where we really need to start when we're looking at, because I know that our code does need some upgrades and changes, but I know that the book is this fat and it's highly intimidating.
So since the first of the year, Russell, Catherine, myself, I think Nick and Adam have been meeting. We were meeting weekly, going through just the subdivision code of our land development code, that subdivision chapter, just specifically about to discuss what works, what doesn't work. But that's not necessarily from size of lands and densities and so forth. It's really about our approval process for infrastructure improvements and so forth like that. We have not looked at the densities or other areas there. I think, Michael, do you recall if has there been discussion? I know that we've been introduced to what other communities are doing through Housing Colorado about writing in codes to make it more beneficial for affordable housing. I'm sure that we've done something similar here. Apparently this resolution was an attempt to make that happen. I'm not familiar with the resolution myself, but
Patrick might speak to this, but we've, as far as comparison goes to the communities, we've, reduced the parking requirements. You have the density bonus available for 80% below A line. That maybe that percentage could use a boost, especially when looking at our Victoria Village, or just some other areas within that business district. The biggest focus of that conference was around the Y-Tech, the 4% non-competitive, the 9% competitive,
right.
Negotiating those IGAs with municipalities for affordable housing development, and whether that's through waiving the sales and use tax, property tax abatement, different types of things they would negotiate with their deals.
There was other discussions about streamlining approval process for affordable housing, to help developers get into the ground faster and get the product more. Okay.
Had the opportunity to test it.
Right.
Parnell, did you find any municipalities that had a good or
No.
what you thought was good?
No, I've looked around. I didn't find anybody that had come up with a really great plan or even an okay plan. Colorado is very against the spot zoning kind of stuff. So you got to do it like we did with the Riverwalk overlay. You got to do an overlay type thing that covers a larger area. The trying to think of the section in Denver. There's one section in Denver that has a little higher density, but what they did in Denver is they took away the parking requirements. So if you park, you got to find your own place to park, and you are paid by the meter on the street.
And that's crazy. Parking's an issue.
Parking's an issue.
Parking's an issue. The talking with firefighters, and they said one of the big challenges, and this goes back to our overnight stays, people that are renting through VRBO and all the short-term rentals. So their code had them down for maybe 1.5 spaces or 2 their garage and where you park in front of the garage, but they're filling the garages with their personal items. So it leaves them just with their driveway. And so people are parking in the streets and all over, and emergency vehicles can't get through.
Right.
Along with other vehicles. So that's a problem. So one of my thoughts too is if we're looking at revamping this code is that for STRs, we should include that requirement that their garage, if that's part of their parking permit, their numbers, that has to stay available for parking to help alleviate some of that problem, because that could be a huge safety issue.
A town regulation, you got to clean your garage. I don't know. That's going to be
Yeah.
tough.
Well, you got to park your car in there. You know, if they want to rent it out,
No, I
if
get
they
it.
have,
Yeah.
yeah, they need to
Well,
use it as a parking space.
2 small cars can get into an average garage. The truck I drive and stuff that you drive,
Yeah.
you drive, you might get 1.5 cars into a garage, the
Yeah.
standard size garage.
Yeah.
So that's where the parking's already off. Winter Park has that big public parking lot that they have. And, if they got rid of their parking codes, that thing would be packed, because that's people would park there and then take the bus, because that would be your choice.
Yeah.
The other thing is you have to have much stricter enforcement. If you're parked on the road or your cars are parked 3 deep and the ass end sticking into the road, that's a ticket or a tow, right? That takes care of that real quick. People stop parking where they can't park.
It's hard to, like you say, with the short-term rentals, got people that come up, they've never been here, they need a place to park, they're gonna park across the street, they're in the mountains.
Well, they
And,
know where to get food. They know where to go to the hot tub.
Yeah.
They know where the gym is. All you got to do is put it in your rules. This is where you park. If you have more than 2 cars, the third car gets parked here at the garage. You got to
Yeah.
transport them back or take the bus.
Yeah.
The rules I'm not worried about the STRs. I'm worried about how we keep local families and local people living in our town instead of being shipped out. I mean,
Yeah.
Mary, you brought up the issue with Vail right now, where they're more concerned about bighorn sheep than they are about housing, which is to me a way of saying we don't want housing in our neighborhoods.
For employees, yeah.
And I don't want I want to get on top of that before Fraser becomes that way. And there's certain areas here that are already that way.
The only, whatever is decided, but, the value of commercial development is really important, and we do have a limited downtown.
Yes.
And I've always cautioned people when they start talking about putting housing in their downtown. Yes, it does bring density, which boosts the revenues of the commercial businesses. But, my concern would be that we give up too much of our downtown downtown commercial property to residential.
And agreed. I would like to see the first level of any kind of housing project being commercial.
Yeah.
Because then you have people that work in your commercial living above you or just 2 doors over, right? So that's something that does work in towns, is where you have commercial on the first 1 or 2 levels, be it office space versus retail, and then housing above.
Yeah.
So I've seen that work really well, just about every neighborhood. So I'm with you.
And on Highway 40 coming through Fraser, this has always been one of my things, is we allow more density, but stair step the buildings. Don't have a 3-story building right on Highway 40, because people come here, a large majority of people just driving through, they come here because they love the mountains and they love the views. They don't want to be in a city. So if it still feels more open and not like, oh my God, I'm in a city, I got to get out of here, it'll be more inviting, as well as maintain. know, just stair stepping it, think about the views and putting the taller buildings a little further further away from the highway.
We need to get more people off US 40 anyway, so maybe we'll take the
Right.
back roads and that way they can enjoy the view.
And high, well,
Not
and
driving, joking.
that would be, we want them on our, you don't want them on our back roads. Those are our the locals' back roads.
That's what we're talking about. We're talking about housing for more levels.
Well, the topography in downtown is good for that, and the Riverwalk district is lower than Highway 40, so
Yeah.
it lends itself to having taller buildings down there and still being able to see over the top of them. So,
Right.
yeah.
I'm not saying every lot, but
Yeah.
just how can we do it to make it better? Because I've talked to a bunch of developers and they want to come and build, but they can't, they find a lot, and they can't get enough density on it.
So let's zoom in on the zoning map, shall we?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Kathy.
I mean, surely you are aware that we have a couple new zoning overlay districts in the town as a result of our 2018 code overhaul. So Victoria Village has its own overlay density. And then if you scroll down, please, Michael, the rest of the hashed area is also, that's the Riverwalk Mixed Use Overlay District.
Mhm.
So in the Riverwalk Mixed Use Overlay District and the Victoria Village Overlay District, we allow density bonuses. Has anyone used those bonuses? Has anyone requested that? Not until now. So at our planning commission meeting next week, we have the first applicant coming through and is asking for density bonuses. So in the Riverwalk district, which has an underlining, most of the area in the Riverwalk is the underlining zoning is business. And typically you can do 1 unit. You can do 20 units to the acre or 1 unit for every 178 gross square feet of land. So we offer the town of Fraser offers 2 types of density bonuses within that area in the Riverwalk Mixed Use Overlay District. So one option is if you do 100% commercial on the ground floor, you can increase that density to 40 units an acre. So instead of 1 unit, 4 units per acre.
Okay.
Okay, 40.
40.
Okay, there you go. All right, thank you.
Another 20.
Instead of
Twice.
20.
Gotcha.
So what that means
Wow,
is
that's a lot.
instead of 1 unit for every 178 of gross land area,
Mhm.
you can do 1 unit for every 1089. Okay. But you also have to comply with the other development standards. So you need to comply with the parking requirements,
Mhm.
of which we have lessened our parking requirements because that's what everyone's doing in the Rocky Mountain West, to allow for a more vibrant downtown and more building.
And to encourage people to come here without cars.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
that too.
Yeah.
So that's one option in the Riverwalk Mixed Use District. The other option is if you include some affordable housing, deed restricted, 80% AMI affordable housing. And so that's an option too. And if you do that, you can go up to 60 units per acre in that district. Which again, I don't know, for those of you that were here when we did the code overhaul, we kind of laughed at that because you probably can't do 60.
Right. Because the parking and all the other requirements don't work.
In the Victoria Village, we don't allow that density bonus for 100% commercial on the ground floor, but we do allow a density bonus if you incorporate 20% of the residential units are deed restricted. And it doesn't specify what kind of deed restriction. And so the people that are coming in next week are looking to do rentals. So that's something Antoinette and I talked about this week, because that's a little bit different than the current program that we have that hasn't really been successful yet. So this is going to be a tweak to that program because
They're doing the commercial on the bottom floor, right? At least on the
so
highway
they
side.
are doing 2 buildings. The front building will have 100% commercial on the ground floor.
Yep.
And the second building will be all residential.
This is the old Dairy Queen side, or
Right.
Where's that?
So that
Jerry-
public
Jerry
hearing is
King
next
was-
Wednesday
Where-
night.
where
I
the
encourage you to
One
come.
Love was.
Gary
Yeah.
King. Andy?
Dairy King.
Yes.
There were two chains.
One
weren't
love.
So you have that mechanism in place, Parnell?
Yeah, well, for some of the density.
For-
but
for
like
that
you said,
area.
Right. And some of that's good, but it still doesn't make it all work, right? I mean, it's, when you look at the people that I'm talking to, and I'm not saying we didn't do bad work. I was with you when we went through this and we thought that was a huge change. But as I talk to developers and they look at properties, they go, oh, I could, okay, instead of building 4 2-bedrooms or 8 2-bedrooms, I'm going to build 8 5-bedroom houses on there. Because the parking fits and I got a bigger house, now I can sell it for more money and it's cheaper to build a bedroom than it is a bathroom and a kitchen. So what we did is great, but it doesn't get the developers to say, yes, that's what I'm gonna do.
Well, I mean, previous to the plant investment fee change, it was based on number of bedrooms.
Right.
So a lot of the larger bedrooms, it was 1 plant investment fee for up to 3 bedrooms, and each additional bedroom was 0.2 of a plant investment
Okay.
fee. So a lot of the bigger units up in, for instance, Rendezvous, they paid a larger tap fee.
Right.
And they're also paying that same ratio carried onto the service rates.
Okay.
And is that just in Rendezvous? Because they were the
No.
last ones to.
Well,
That's-
the
that carries
bigger
over.
houses.
The bigger house.
So, you know, that's the place where we have 4 and 5 bedroom homes,
Right.
probably the only place. Because it's the custom homes up there.
And we'll probably see bigger houses going on the other side of the highway at some point.
Correct.
Like mansions, as they call
Is that west of the railroad tracks?
it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm not saying we haven't done good work. We don't have good things in the code. I'm just saying there's needs to be something that's, I don't know, more, better. I mean, what we saw in Europe was, I mean, the amount of stuff they put on a space and what you see, you know, I don't want to be like New York and those places, you know, but the density that you see in those areas, if we can't figure out how to get that density in here, we're going to price all the locals out of this town in 10 years. We'll be importing from Kremlin, maybe, if Kremlin's not already full with everybody coming over from Keystone, Breckenridge, and Bell.
So you need to look at locating a parking structure.
Well, either parking structure or ground that's like the corner of Victoria Village on 8 and US 40, where that gas line goes under, it's pretty much useless except for some kind of parking, because you can't build anything above it,
Surface parking.
surface parking. So finding places we can do surface parking would be better.
A lot
A
cheaper.
lot cheaper. I mean, I don't know, do you remember what that
Just takes
garage
up
cost in Winter Park? Was it $3 million? back?
Nothing, man.
Huh?
They had nothing. They got it for free. Remember, they went bankrupt.
Oh, that's
on
right.
that,
That's right. That's right. I think they said back in the late
It's a
80s.
$6 million building.
Yeah, it was $6 million.
So another tool related to parking, I had a recent discussion with a developer interested in Victoria Village, is what they've done in Breckenridge and what they've done in Golden is a tool that they've used for some of the downtown areas when they're building residential or, you know, commercial like around residential above, is instead of providing those parking spaces, they pay $10,000 to $15,000 per parking space to go towards a larger parking. So
So about 10 years ago, Breckenridge was charging 25,000 for a 10 by 20 parking space as fee in lieu.
Yeah, in Breckenridge now, the model is that you park in those garages and take a bus into town. If you go into town to park there, all the parking meters in town are programmed to be much more expensive during peak times. And just, if you want to park in town, it's huge bucks. So yeah, that's the model it seems. So gets people on the bus.
the value could potentially be there if you're looking, I don't know if 25 grand's the right number, but I mean, talk to a developer, they can tell you, I mean, if they can use that space for more development, that's a higher return on investment than providing for that parking.
But you balance it, as Parnell says, you don't want to increase the cost of development, but it's a trade-off.
Right.
Yeah.
It's an option that could be there.
I mean, the other thing that we did with the code as it relates to the parking is there's a section of the code that talks about modification to parking strategies. And so it allows for another way to lower the already lower parking requirements, if you will. So there's a section of town that allows for on-street parking that can be used as what should have been like on-site parking. There's also a reduction if there's joint parking facilities between, say, residential and commercial. There's a reduction if you're within so many feet of the transit line. So there are a lot of options. And again, we're going to see that in great detail at my last planning commission meeting next week.
And there, I couldn't find it.
Be a planning commissioner? You got openings.
You must be joking. Yeah.
I tried to Google these, but they're called I units, and they were becoming popular. And what they do is they're in boxes of, they come in 12 units at a time. So it's 20, 12, 24, 36. And as you get each unit, you get a car that goes with it. And so that each 12 units has a car in case you have an emergency or you need to drive to Denver. The car's part of your rent or part of your ownership of the building. And that's
Aspen?
another, they were doing one in Aspen.
Aspen has that.
Yeah, I tried to find it. I couldn't find where they actually built it. And that alleviates a lot of the parking because now you don't have to have a car. And I don't know if you guys have noticed, but a lot of the younger people aren't getting their driver's license until much later in life, if at all, because they've decided they don't want to drive and they don't want to own a car. Right. And I don't know how far we away from self-driving cars. A ways. So we got time for that. But anyway, so having rental cars can take care of, right?
One tricky part of it is though, we're on Highway 40, which is a pretty major highway, gets a lot of traffic and there's a lot of people driving through. And if we want them to stop, you gotta have a place to park.
Well, that's what the
And if all the parking is taken up by people that are living here and don't have a place to park their car where they live.
Parking meters. Again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No parking
can
until
wait
after.
for
Because that was the problem in Breckenridge is all their spots were filling up early in the day with the employees coming to work.
Sure.
Right.
So this parking meter solved that problem because it was cheaper for an employee to park in the garage and take the bus to work. So.
Right.
So municipalities, from my experience working in the Chicago suburbs, municipalities are dealing with that parking issue. They have to have a funding mechanism to pay for the construction of that facility. And it's typically through the fees that they charge. I mean, there's creative ways to go about doing that, but you know, if downtown parking structure is a need, you know, I think there's different ways to go about trying to find that.
Right.
You know, through maybe a land dedication from a major development or something like that, or like they were talking about a fee in lieu of,
right.
You know,
I feel like there's a lot of commercially zoned streets that we don't use. Like obviously we use Eisenhower, you know, for parking, but we use Fraser Avenue, but we don't use Byers Avenue. Nobody knows they can really park there. You can. We don't use. What about Mill Avenue where your house is? It's commercially zoned. You should be able to park on that street, right?
Yeah.
And then across the street where Doc Susie's is all weird right there. When it comes into Fraser, they should be able to park up and down that street. Also, there's no lines there. So people don't know, hey, I can park here. I'm gonna get towed. So they're looking for other places, you know? There's a lot of parking I think we just don't utilize.
And a lot of people started doing the diagonal parking and turning things into one-way streets because you need a lot more cars parked diagonally than you can parallel.
be careful. We did a study of that when I was in Illinois about diagonal versus parallel parking there. And the amount of additional parking space was actually pretty low.
Really?
Yeah, because you've got limited side distance at the corners. There's greater setback from for at intersections and so forth.
That's math I didn't do.
And then there's extra width for handicap parking. There's just a lot of factors that kind of go into that.
Okay.
I'm not saying it's a bad idea. I'm just saying that
And I know one area has where you reverse into your diagonal parking, so you pull forwards and then reverse in versus pulling in forward. It's supposed to help with accidents.
So our winter policy, no parking on town streets.
Overnight parking.
Overnight parking, right? Does that go for all the streets?
Yeah.
Okay, well then, they could park for during the day, but not for the overnight.
Yeah,
It's such
also-
a narrow rights of way in town. That's one in Old Town at least. So
But what's the difference between Eisenhower where everybody parks and the next street over where no one parks?
Eisenhower is a wider street, I believe, isn't it?
Then Byers Avenue? I don't know. It's a
Yeah.
pain in the ass to cross it, I know.
So
But why not be a pain in the ass on Byers Avenue too?
pretty sure it is. It has sidewalks and that right of way must be wider.
Oh, there must be an easement on Byers Avenue.
Well,
Maybe.
Yeah.
Eisenhower's your main lane through the town. Right? Wasn't that supposed to connect
Commercial.
to all the stuff going?
I think it's the old Main Street, the old.
Yeah,
the highway
Highway
used
forty.
to,
Oh, it
highway
is,
used to
yeah.
go down there.
yeah,
Yeah.
right. I'm trying to remember how that went.
Highway 40 used to go down Eisenhower?
Yeah, and across the tracks and then out.
St.
out.
Louis Road or
It
something.
didn't go out through the meadow. The highway didn't. It was up on that where the Fraser Granby Trail is. So
Interesting.
there was that winter they had to drag all the buildings off Eisenhower and over on the highway. The old Conoco next to the creek there,
Mhm.
the winery that Ivor actually drug that building off of Eisenhower in the wintertime and put it over on US 40. So, and there were several of those buildings that got drug across. So,
No wonder they don't have foundations.
no,
Those old
came in handy
buildings.
that way. So,
There's no remnants of them.
It's hard to drag a foundation.
Yeah.
So how far off of 40 are you suggesting?
Well, I was thinking about a half mile or so, and that's just a guesstimate. I didn't do any math or real.
it seems
thought
our
into it.
zoning's pretty well set up though for this.
It is and it isn't,
You're just talking about the east side,
both sides.
both sides.
Because the overlay district, Darnell, if you look at this, it's hashed. And we did put it on both sides of the highway, all the way to the railroad tracks, so through downtown, so that there's these density bonuses that Catherine talked about. She had the foresight to put us down this road to give those kind of density
Yeah.
bonuses all through downtown. So,
And I'm not saying the density bonuses are wrong. What I'm saying is nobody's taking advantage of it. Nobody,
well,
and Catherine.
Well,
said it
sounds
too.
like they might be
we'll see a start this week. So,
Yeah.
on
Yeah,
Wednesday.
start.
I mean, the west side of 40 is pretty much all built. Like I don't see anybody knocking their building down and building high density housing, right?
Right.
Could see that.
Good.
Yeah,
That's
Yeah.
what happened at the One Love site.
mhm.
yeah.
The older buildings, the value goes up and,
Tear down.
you know,
The land's worth more than the building.
yeah, infill
Right.
development
It's
is.
I mean, I understand the
The creek.
concept. I just don't
Yeah.
see it happening anytime soon on
Yeah.
that side of
Like,
40,
maybe $3
on
million
this
bucks
side
for
of
the
40.
creek and the
Right.
I think that's the key to have effective planning, to have some foresight about, what is that gonna look like our downtown 20 years from now? And what do we want it to look like?
Right. And you don't have to tear down buildings. You can do what Donald Trump did and create the airspace above the building. People buy that and then they come and develop a building above the existing building.
You gotta change the code for that.
I got a piece of air I want to
Yes.
sell
I'm
you
not-
and
I'm
you're
not-
gonna love it.
I'm not saying we don't have to change some things. I'm just saying that's available. One of those things is available.
Are you seeing us changing the height requirement?
Well, 45 feet's fairly decent. I think that's right. Isn't that through the whole thing is 45 feet?
Business district is 45.
Yeah. Is the river overlay 45 or just parts of that?
It's 45.
Okay. And that seems to be plenty high. You start hitting that 55 feet and you got to get, well, even at 45 feet, you should have elevators, but 55 feet, people definitely want elevators. That 5th floor is awfully hard to walk up to.
Well, that's building code requirements.
So
I guess-
45 feet, that's basically 3 floors, right? And a pitch roof, or 4 floors and a flat roof?
The building behind the creek's 45 feet.
I think it's higher than 45.
Is it?
The Creek condos? Might be 47. That's still three stories, 3 levels.
Right?
I think Pine Tree
So-
Plaza.
Parnell, where specifically? I mean, is there, other than saying a half a mile, because a half a mile is quite a,
I just gave it distance. I just threw out a number.
because we have this whole swath of.
Right.
Where we've already changed the density.
Well, we've
Is there
changed the density.
specifically some area that,
Well, the stuff up and around One Love, that whole, whatever that Eastham Road that loops around. Both sides of that, it's in the density thing, but when you look at the parking requirements and the height limit doesn't matter, but the parking requirements that causes you not to be able to do as many units on the property. And when you look at the price of the ground that people are selling for, the 8 units doesn't make it enough. Right? If they're going to build 8 units, they're going to build the 8 biggest units they can build. And that's the issue, is not the number of units, it's the size of the unit that matters. It's not, people want to be able to build studios and 1 bedrooms. They don't want to build 2, 3, and 4 bedroom houses.
So there are some financial options we haven't considered.
Yeah.
You know, obviously, if, for example, a parking structure could be funded in part through what they call a business improvement district related to your downtown. All the property owners with that would contribute to that. The user fees, you know, parking fees and so forth. As far as the town's ability to offer incentives other than code changes, like what was done, you know, a couple of years ago, putting overlay districts in there and streamlining procedures. There are some options that are available for incentivizing certain types of development. Unfortunately, as a statutory town, you're kind of, your hands are kind of tied.
Right, understood.
You know, but there are options out there available.
Right.
So what I'm hearing, if I can just kind of sum up, is the overlay districts that we put in there allows those density bonuses. Now, we haven't seen a lot of development in there yet, but we've got our first opportunity that's coming up next week.
Right.
And we've been working with the owners of this property for almost, what, 5-6 months?
At least.
Yeah.
At
A
least,
year.
to talk about, you know, how can we make this work, you know, addressing things like the parking and so forth.
Excuse me, is this one on Highway 40 on the One Love?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's one.
Is that a
left.
half acre, just over half?
It's 0.66 an acre.
Yeah. And what they're going to build looks nice, but it's going to be
Dense.
really dense right there.
It is.
But, you know, if parking is, and if we can find a way to address the parking in addition to the code changes that's already out there, not only for people who live down there, but also people that are going to be stopping and visiting, shopping and so forth like that. I'm not saying that's an easy solution, but
No, right.
it would probably go a long way to alleviating some of those parking and on-site parking restrictions, even the on-street parking. For example, this One Love property, you know, one of the things that's going to come up next Wednesday is about sidewalk sizes, the width of the road, on-street parking, you know, parallel parking on both sides, and getting that cross section of that intersection to allow all of that is as much of a struggle as just getting on-site parking.
And I don't know exactly what they're building, but I think they're going for maximum density. So aren't they trying to hit right around 24, 30?
They're not
units?
going for maximum density.
Oh, they decide not to do that. So on that lot, the maximum you could do would be 30 units, 31 units maybe, with the 60%, 60 units the acre.
I don't know.
Right, that would be your max, let's say, that you could do.
Yeah,
is
they're not
30
doing the
units.
max.
And those units are gonna be 2 and 3 bedroom units. Because that's a better rental per unit, because you get more people into the unit. Because you can't do 60 studio units, which is the same number of bedrooms and the same number of people. That's what I'm talking about, is the difference in that.
Are they going to be condos or rentals?
Rentals,
Rental.
Rentals.
Long term or short term?
long term. They're looking at it for employee housing.
So the other thing this board needs to think about, and this is a perfect opportunity, is because of these redevelopment opportunities down there, and because of some of the recommendations in the downtown strategic plan, is you have streets in there that have valley pans. And so that's a totally different cross section of a street than a street that has curb and gutter.
Right.
You know, so there are undergrounding utility line issues right there. I mean, you got to put some money in the budget for some of this stuff. Again, I've been saying this for years and years. You're not going to get private investment unless the public does some investment.
Right.
Good point.
So it's a redesign of the whole road system, you know? I mean, that was the cheapest way to get paved roads back in the day, you know?
Yes.
But if you really do want a vibrant downtown and the code requires an 8-foot sidewalk, there's some public-private partnership.
Right.
So money needs to go in the budget.
It's not an easy concept. It's not a,
No,
it's not a, let's
It's
have
not.
one meeting and, oh, wow, we got it figured out, right? That's why I wanted to bring it up. It's better to have 20 people working on the idea than 1 or 2 people working on it.
And so just a little bit of feedback from Ted's project. So that was one of the first fairly dense developments. It's 20 units on an acre. And there was, if you guys remember, there was a lot of pushback for him to provide storage, which isn't anywhere in the code.
Yeah.
There was a lot of pushback that they felt the parking wasn't adequate, even though he was meeting code requirements. He ended up having to plat a 20-foot right of way along the highway to allow for possible expansion of the highway in the future. So we've got to, if we're going to come to the community with a message that we want, that we need to have density to lower prices, we got to stick to it. And we've got, and that's what was so unpredictable for Ted, and made that, and the process drug on for a long time because of COVID too. We all had a long COVID delay, but it was pretty frustrating. And you guys got a lot, the town board got a lot of pressure from Grand Park across the street. There was a little bit of a movement there, and it was interesting that they were worried their view was going to be compromised. And now those same homeowners have all those huge buildings along the highway that Ted's won't even be visible from those people's houses. But there's going to be pushback. There's going to be people that want an old style lower density Fraser. And I think that at least the last election taught us that that message doesn't sell very well anymore. And we do need to make it more predictable when a person comes through this process. So I really do think that we did a pretty good job over the last few years with Catherine and this board of helping to tweak these development regulations. I think we need to get that sliding scale back so that, as Parnell says, we can lower these tap and overhead fees based on the size of units. But mainly it's just got to be the will of this board to stick with the regulations and make them more predictable for people that come through the process. So
Right.
Well, there were a couple issues though with that specific project.
sure, there were.
Yeah,
There absolutely
so-
were, and we worked through them, and we got it
Well, I mean,
successfully
there were,
done. So
initially it didn't meet some of the code requirements. And again, that project went through this reduced parking
Mhm.
requirement.
right,
And there is a section of the code that also says, at the discretion of the planning commissioner or the staff, that there should be overflow parking to accommodate that we've lessened the parking spaces,
well, have we lessened them or not? That's the question, and maybe that section of the code needs to go
Well,
away. So
And, I believe your project is mostly sold out, so it doesn't matter at this point, but
right.
how many is it local housing units were sold versus regular market? Because it wasn't
Yeah.
restricted to local housing.
No, and I don't think this project coming up is either, but in any case, that's a whole nother
No, right.
question.
It's not deed
Yeah,
restricted, correct.
right,
And that's one of the things I would add on to it. If you're able to do a higher density of units, then they have to be deed restricted for employee housing.
well, that's what we've got in,
Workforce housing.
that's what we've got in the overlay district. We can go to 60 units if they're AMI deed restricted or, yeah. So-
And then a small note on your workforce housing, there's a couple issues that some areas have, and if you're not working, you can't stay in the housing. So when you turn 65 and you retire, you get kicked out of your house. Seems a little unfair.
Well, we've kept that in the deed restriction.
No,
Yeah.
you can.
No, not here, other
Oh.
towns. Other
Yeah.
towns.
Great.
Yeah, Aspen ran up against that first. so-
Yeah, I mean, that's.
Yeah,
what it was
yeah.
thinking.
Disabled, you're out.
Right,
Mhm.
right.
Yeah.
That's how that works.
So
So
we gave those protections in our
Yeah.
regulations, yeah.
I couldn't remember.
But that's just some feedback from the
That's
trustee
good.
that went through the process, so.
Right.
But Ted was handled fairly and professionally, and I think by and large, the regulations worked really well, so.
Is that, who's Ted?
Ted Carney.
Where is it?
Yeah, so it's the lot right next to the Grand Valley flooring, so
Okay,
so
I'm
that's
like,
that's platted for 2,400 square
Okay.
foot units, so.
all right,
Right
Yeah.
there by the liquor store.
okay.
Riverview
Like I wasn't here
condominium,
at that
so-
point.
No, right.
Yeah,
No, that's all right.
yeah, no worries.
Those are one bedroom, right? They're
Yeah,
not
they're
even a
just,
bedroom.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
a small bedroom and
It's
no
like less than
lot.
500 square feet. I
Yeah.
mean, that was the concern. It was a legitimate concern about the storage, you know?
Sure, but let's put that in the code. So I don't know,
That's
because if
true.
we go to small units,
Well, and
we have storage businesses in the county.
We might
too,
have the
so-
garage situation for Katie.
well, that's what,
Actually, it's
so
good.
one building somewhere in Arizona, they're smaller units and the first floor is all commercial and it's storage units. So everybody that lives above rents a storage unit. That's how they got the commercial.
And they can save money if they don't have much stuff.
Right.
So,
Like Lodge 2 has that.
Well, they're garages, which is actually part of their
There's
parking.
storage units too.
remember, there was a day you could put all your possessions in your car.
Right. That was the day. I left college
Yeah,
that day.
that one day.
And there's a lot of people that still have all their possessions. at the
And they
car.
do. And
Yeah,
Unfortunately.
right.
But not too many here. It's too cold.
So I just want to put more eyes on it, give it more thought. I think what we did in 2018 was a great start. It just hasn't, not enough developers are taking advantage of it, or there's some part of it that's not working that they look at and they say, okay, it's not going to work. So,
Those
and that's
are-
not anybody on the planning commission or Catherine's fault. It's just hard to get the numbers to work out.
A lot of
The
it could be also
expired-
the size of the land. I'm sorry.
The expired incentive program, does it need reworking at all or just redating?
Are you talking the sliding plant investment fee? It has expired.
I know
So
that.
it needs a new resolution.
should apply to multifamily.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's the other.
So we
issue.
still need to do some work on it other than just redating it.
And might be worthwhile when you're doing that review, instead of just a resolution with an expiration date, to codify that in an
Yeah.
ordinance.
Yeah.
Along with your land use code. I mean, that way it's not a limited benefit.
So with that, the fee right now, is it just a flat fee for any building, any unit, residential unit? Or did you say that it increases if it's 3 or more bedrooms?
So the plant investment fee right now is based on the water meter size.
Okay.
So if you need a 3/4 inch water meter,
Which
That's-
services how many bedrooms?
it could typically service a single family dwelling.
Okay,
You're looking at one plant investment fee for water, one plant investment fee for sewer.
Okay.
Together, that's a 15,200 fee.
okay,
And so what we did do was we allowed the plant investment fee to be collected just prior to CO instead of a building permit issuance. So it's backloaded instead of front loaded.
okay,
And many people have taken advantage of that.
all right.
Then you said, Catherine, if they get up to a certain number of bedrooms, they need a larger meter then, or
Right.
is that determined by code?
Yes.
Okay.
Chapter 13 of the code.
And so up to, was it after 3 bedrooms, they've got to get a larger plan investment?
You know, it
fee?
depends.
Yeah.
It depends on BAS too.
It depends on, commercial, what size meter they need for that.
For residential, is there a breaking point to put them into a bigger meter, or as far as size of the house?
Yeah.
5 and 3.
I would recommend you guys read chapter 13 of the land development code.
Just don't have it in front of me right now. Why didn't I do?
I can open it
know,
right
speed
now.
reader. That's okay. No, we only got 5 minutes. That's
Okay.
it.
So it does seem like the actual zoning map could take care of what we're looking for, higher density. So
Well,
it,
a little bit.
a little bit,
That's what I was trying to get out of Parnell,
yeah.
but he wasn't specific.
Well, I was trying to be specific. So if you had,
He weren't, though.
if you had 2-bedroom units, they sleep 4 people.
Mhm.
Studio unit sleeps 2 people. I mean, you can put 4 in a studio unit. They do it in college, but it's tight, right?
Right,
So let's say it sleeps 2. So people build a bunch of 2-bedroom units, and that's 8 people. Those are all units. The studio that has 2 people in is still a unit. So when you say you get 60 units to the acre, I can do 62 bedrooms or I can do 60 studios. Where I should be able to do 120 studios and
Right.
60 two
Right.
bedrooms.
So it's
That makes more sense.
right.
So in other words, if I can summarize, what you're saying is define those units better. That was the first thing
Yes.
you talked about. To apply that density based on whether it's a 1-bedroom studio, 2-bedroom and so
Yes,
forth.
correct.
Okay.
So a unit's not just, because a unit is a kitchen and a bath, and that makes a unit.
Yeah. So define it more based on how many people logically would sleep in a place.
Right.
Kitchen, bath, and bedroom.
You don't have
Well-
to have a bedroom.
Yeah.
A
Okay,
unit doesn't have to have a bedroom.
right, but let's say if you want to differentiate between, like you said, the studio and a 2-bedroom.
Right. It's number of people that can sleep in it.
Well, it should
Comfortably
be
sleep.
pegged to square footage though, because it's pretty easy to,
No, right?
put a large studio unit in that you're gonna just come in and put a partition wall into later. So,
Correct.
so square footage is your best.
Yes. That's a
Yeah,
good
yeah.
example. Yes.
I would agree with that. I think that's a good idea.
So just trying to think, so we can be funky Fraser, keep us different than the rest of the country. Come on.
So what needs to be, what are the next steps in regards to how we,
I was just about to ask that question, whether or not we need to have a follow-on discussion in 2 weeks. We could have another work session.
I think we need a good homework assignment prior
could-
to.
Try to get some samples drawn up of what it looks like, what a difference, a bunch of studio units versus a bunch of 2-bedroom or 3-bedroom units. Show you what building size would be, number of units, at least calculate it out.
And then it's.
I think we need another work session
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
Now that we know what
We need to see the
exactly.
expired.
Now
Yeah,
we
I'm trying
can,
to get it out of me. It's a little rough.
we can look for this resolution about the sliding plan investment fee, maybe come up with some suggestions, some ideas here. We can look at those, defining the unit and bring some other discussion. I'm a little concerned about 2-week turnaround. Yeah, no, this work, because we got some turnover coming over.
Yeah, I don't expect this happening before the end of the year. I mean, to me, it's a thought out process. Let's give it some real
So
time.
I wanted to do this now because we're losing Catherine. and
Yeah.
Catherine has the most knowledge of our code.
Yes, she does.
So I wanted her to weigh in before she left. That's why I had slated the next two workshops. So, and it's going to be difficult it's going to be difficult moving forward without a planner
Yes.
for sure. And then to try and work through this without a planner is going to be difficult as well. So,
Matt, can I ask?
and we also still have, like, I would like to invite developers in and
Okay.
say, what is working and what is not working with our code. Because then we're not getting it secondhand, we're getting it from the developers.
Mhm.
And not just our two big developers in the PDD districts, because they have their own set of rules basically because they're in the PDD.
Yeah, I'll see if I can-
Smaller developers.
Yeah, I'll see if I can get talk to a few of my friends.
What about Michael?
So
Is there another topic for the next work session, or do you want to just revisit what we just talked about? Because there were several questions in here. Well, maybe it's just one question, but it's just kind of all.
Yeah.
Trying to figure out what exactly we could talk about. Is there another topic, or do you just want to come back and revisit what we just discussed?
I mean, it does sound like
there's multiple
individual building codes need to be addressed, but maybe we just tackle this first and then we move on to those afterwards.
We'll have another work session on density discussion.
Yeah.
For 2
It'd be
weeks.
great if at the end of the work session, we have something that we feel like we could put pen to paper
Will you
on.
be at our next
I mean,
meeting?
obviously, we can't
Are you done?
vote in a work session, but
Can
just to
we
be
bring
able to, come to some kind of consensus so that we could vote in the following meeting possibly.
We will also have some opportunities for pre-bid meetings once we get into the RFP process for Victoria Village. And we could look for some input like that, such as like the public investment portion of that
Right.
area, like what would be attractive for more development. And make kind of business and building code regulations that we discuss as well. So there'd be
Right.
an opportunity there as well,
And
but not to discourage from a separate,
Yeah.
invitation for the developers.
And that's
I like that.
part of the reason I brought up Philip is I don't want to lose the chance to get a really good, usable on Victoria Village. A better concept where it's got as much density without making it obnoxious.
I'd like to see the expired resolution too, if we could at the next workshop.
Yeah,
So we have that to
We'll bring
base.
that resolution.
Little 5-minute break and then we'll come back for our meeting.
Sure.
Okay, I'd like to go ahead and call to order the Town of Fraser's regular meeting on Wednesday, April 20th at 7:05. Can I please have a roll call?
Katie Fisher,
Andy Miller,
Eileen Waldo.
Brian Cirkmenick.
Parnell Quinn.
Katie Souls.
Philip Vanderneel. So now it's the elected official oath of office. So we had a changeover.
So we switch chairs?
So we're going to get him sworn in first, and then you can switch chairs.
All right.
So,
Deal handshake.
so do the handshake on the way through.
Can I grab my nameplate?
No, you got to leave the nameplate. No, you can take the nameplate.
I'll have you guys do, so you just stand up and we'll just do it all together at one time.
And you guys, the town of Fraser sign back there makes a really great photo op. So if you want to stand there looking this way, just so that the town of Fraser is.
Put the mic at us, so you can hear us really oathing.
And then, hey, somebody put the mic down. Sorry.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
helping you out with your photos. You're gonna thank me later.
Okay.
And the hand sanitizer. You're gonna be like, "Oh, that's the best photo."
All right, so raise your right hand and put it over your heart. And then read along with me. I,
Ka-
your name,
Katie Souls,
do solemnly swear or affirm
do solemnly swear or affirm
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the state of Colorado,
and the state of Colorado,
Fraser Town Code,
the Fraser Town Code,
and faithfully perform the duties of the role of the Fraser Town trustee
and faithfully perform the duties of the role of the Fraser Town trustees. This is office of Fraser Town trustees.
on which I am about to enter.
Upon which I am about to enter. So help me God.
Congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Katie is appointed now. So each of you will sign those and I put those up at the end of the meeting. Okay.
Okay, so a huge warm welcome for our newest trustee, Louis Gregory. And Katie coming back, and so. We're losing Andy. Andy's leaving us. I have something for you, Andy. So this is from more guests.
I was hoping for the go.
I know.
Greatest of all time.
So, we really want to thank you for all that you've done for the town, and I know you're staying on to help out and where you can. So
Absolutely.
we look forward to it. So, yeah, thank you.
All right. Yeah, thank you, Andy.
We're on.
It'll be hard for him not to vote.
All right.
When you've been at the table, it's hard to sit the gallery and
Yeah.
mouth shut.
Puppy best.
Okay, so we need to make a few changes to the agenda before we approve it. One is we want to move the mayor pro tem up to item A instead of after Camber Brewing. So it'll be the mayor pro tem and then municipal appointments, and then Camber, their special.
So after the consent agenda or before? Before or after the consent agenda?
So just under discussion and possible action. So we'll do
Okay, gotcha.
consent first, and then we'll do discussion and possible action. We'll do mayor pro tem, and then municipal appointments, and then Camber Brewing.
So just flip them.
Yeah,
Okay.
because it doesn't make sense to not have our mayor pro tem before we get started
Okay.
on our business. And I think that's. those are the changes. So if I can have a motion with those changes, I would appreciate it.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda with the changes just mentioned by the mayor.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Great. Now consent agenda, which just has the minutes from April 6th on it. I have a motion to approve that.
I so move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Great. Now we are at where we appoint the mayor pro tem, which is nominated and then voted on. I'd like to go ahead and nominate Eileen. I think she's done a wonderful job so far, and it would be nice to finish my next 2 years with Eileen as the mayor pro tem. She does a huge amount for our community. Her attendance is always spot on. She shows up even when she's sick via Zoom, and has a wealth of knowledge in past proceedings and the history of the town of Fraser. So that's who I nominate.
Okay. I would like to nominate Brian Sirkvenick. I agree that Eileen has been stellar in her position. She's 2 years into her final term, I believe, serving on the board. Maybe not, because you have 2 years left of this term, right? Hard to say if you'll make the next one. Anyway, Brian's been here, and I just thought that it might be good for him to get a shot at it. So,
Any other nominations? Nominate everybody. See how that goes.
Make sure to vote.
yeah,
Okay, so we're gonna need to,
Secret ballot.
so it can't be secret,
No.
can't do secret ballots.
Absolutely not.
okay.
So-
Eileen, do you want to keep the mayor pro tem?
I do, and I'm
Okay.
confused by being told that
Oh.
I'm a lame duck already, and who decided I wasn't going to run in 2 years, and who decided I wasn't going to win if I won.
So
I ran,
sorry.
so-
No, you would win if you won. I'm just hoping you live that long, honey.
Oh my gosh.
Wow, Kate, come on.
I'm sorry.
Katie, that's.
I shouldn't
that's-
laugh. It's terrible.
that
That's
is,
completely
That's,
disrespectful.
I don't, I'm sorry.
Completely disrespectful.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I apologize. I just have this
there's
Attitude.
mean,
All my
there's
friends are dying.
chronological age and there's biological age, and
Yeah, sorry, I'm out of line.
Wow.
I apologize.
and you know, if that happens, Philip can call a meeting as soon as my death certificate is signed and have an appointment.
Well,
Sorry. I
I'm happy to
apologize.
keep you as mayor pro tem if you'd like to do it.
Okay,
I would.
all right.
We would need a second.
Second.
All in favor?
I,
Aye.
Opposed?
Okay,
Thank you.
okay.
I'm gonna have to move chairs.
Do we want to, speaking
Oh,
of, it
God.
was suggested that maybe we shake up the chairs. Is everybody, do you want to do a mix up of the chairs? Are you guys tired of sitting in the?
I'm not
obviously-
tired.
Lewis is
obviously
just
you're
really,
Your chair's not even warm yet, so.
I'm just
This is
getting
a
used to my
lefty, I'm
neighbors.
pretty sure that-
Everybody's happy with where you're sitting?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
Next is the municipal appointments. And we have 5, which is the town clerk, the town attorney, town treasurer, municipal judge, and the alternate municipal judge. Those are Antoinette McVeigh is our current town clerk. Kent Whitmer is our current town attorney. Our town treasurer was Beth Williams, but this suggests that we put Rob Clemens in as our town treasurer because Beth is now at Winter Park. Our municipal judge would be Ronald W. Carlson. Alternative municipal judge would be Thad Renaud. So if we can have a motion to approve that resolution.
I so move.
second,
Is there a second? Oh, sorry.
I
All in
second.
favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
thank you.
Thank you, Annette.
Thank you, Antoinette.
Thank you.
Funny.
Thank you, Antoinette.
Next is Camber Brewing, which is a special event permit application.
So Camber Brewing has applied for a special event permit, and these don't always go to the town board, but they want to close the alleyway on the south side of the building to put up a stage for some music. It'd be from 3 p.m. to 9 p.m. So it stays within our noise ordinance for the town. And it allows them to put up a stage and have some music over there. They're not applying for a liquor license. All of the liquor will stay within their licensed premise. And the chief of police and the public works director have both signed off on this as required for the code. So it just requires the town board approval for them to be able to hold the event and close that alley
Will this be a one-time event or?
one time.
So it looks like they do have seating now on the south side.
They
of the
do.
building.
Mhm.
How much space do they have adjacent to the building? And that, so they'll
Not-
be,
It's like, so it's just the alleyway that basically where they put that patio is their property and that's all they have.
okay.
So the stage is just gonna be right off of the
Mhm.
patio. Seems like a no-brainer.
So they'll have some outdoor places to drink beer, it just won't be
It'll
On
just,
in the alley.
correct. Yeah.
They
And
they
they'll
still
have,
have to stay on their premises for.
yeah,
drink.
and they'll have staff outside and make sure people stay on the premise with alcohol beverages.
Is there a problem with it being off premises on the road?
Uh,
That's going to inevitably happen, I would imagine.
State liquor law.
State liquor law.
Yes, it's a licensed premise. You're not allowed to leave a licensed premise with an alcohol beverage unless it's closed off and they have a special event permit, which includes a liquor license permit, which he's not applying for. So it is a little bit, it is different.
But the band's going to be out in the street.
The band will be on the,
That's
on
what
the, in the alleyway.
That's what the stage is for. So they can put the band on.
Good luck enforcing that, right?
Well, they just have to get off and drink, get back on.
Okay, motions.
I move to approve Camber Ring special event permit application.
All in favor?
I,
Aye.
Opposed? Next is resolution 2022-0407's grant agreement for Operation Turnkey grant for procurement of Victoria Village. Michael?
Good evening, Board of Trustees and Mayor. So this resolution does pertain to the grant agreement that we are working with the Division of Housing on for the Operation Turnkey grant. This is a $3 million, $40,000 grant that we are awarded through this grant program, Operation Turnkey. So this will allow us to enter into a grant agreement. Once the agreement is ready, there may be some changes. Our attorney is required to review this before the town manager is allowed to sign it, if you are given that, if you get that authorization. So this in conjunction with the kind of the next item that we'll be discussing is once we need that grant agreement to be able to expedite the process of getting funding for this grant, especially with recent developments with the funding from the grant administrators to not be able to provide the cash that we need to close in time to meet our May 20th closing date. So what this will do is allow, once that grant agreement is ready to be signed, it's been reviewed by the town attorney, it will allow our town manager at Cannon to be able to sign that agreement and get that submitted back to the Division of Housing for their final signature, so we can have a finalized agreement. And that agreement can help us expedite processes for this bridge loan that we'll discuss next, and just keep the grant process moving forward to increase our chances of success. Waiting for a mayor's signature or a subsequent board meeting.
Mhm.
So that's what this resolution is for.
The next two resolutions.
Well, you have them separate.
Yeah.
Yes, for this portion, resolution 2022-0407, for him to be able to sign the grant agreement associated to the operations grant.
Yeah, exactly. Okay.
I saw no negative to not signing it.
Yeah.
Not that I, well,
Yeah.
Makes
I
sense.
think we should go for it.
Yeah.
Is that a motion?
Okay. I move that we pass resolution 2022-0407.
You want to wrap both of them up in there?
I want to talk about the next one,
You want to talk about the
the
next?
second one.
Okay, I guess not.
So
Okay,
Just
is there a second?
second,
All in favor?
Aye.
I,
Opposed? Okay, next is discussion on 2022-0406, authorizing the town manager to sign the bridge loan documents.
so bridge loan, do we have that 3 million plus change somewhere
It's in the-
that's
it's
just
in-
sitting in
it's in the
available town
basement.
funds so we can use that if we have?
So Katie,
$1 bills.
Oh, okay.
so Katie, this was our first option. It's like, okay, we just pull from our reserves that we have available to do
Yeah.
this. Our award letter for the Operation Turnkey grant says that it can provide the grant funds or a reimbursement of a bridge loan. It cannot reimburse us for our own funds used.
Oh, okay.
So
Cool.
we have to use a bridge loan for that reimbursement. And because we have to go this route to be able to close on May 20th, to make sure that we can close on May 20th, we have a informal agreement with the Division of Housing that will seek to solidify, but they will also, they're saying they'll also be able to pay most or all of the fees and interest associated with this loan as well. So this will keep it self-contained within this loan so that we can get the proper reimbursement for the $3,040,000 plus any associated fees or interest.
And so we've got the money if we want it.
We're gonna take the loan. It's based on a meeting that we had with the grant team last week. They are having the same struggles with employee challenges, and they're looking at 2 or 3 months for reimbursement. We are pursuing a 6-month term just to be safe, but this will allow us to meet the obligations to have the funds available to close on May 20th, just to make sure we don't lose out on this opportunity and on this grant award.
Okay, thank you. Well, then I'll make a motion to approve resolution 2022-0406, authorizing the manager to sign the bridge loan documents.
I second.
All in favor?
I,
Opposed? Thanks, Michael. Next is resolution 2022-0408, approving an IGA establishing Fraser Valley Housing Partnership. It's like Michael.
So I'll just provide a brief introduction to this to provide for some discussion. Before you with this intergovernment agreement, this has been signed by Grand County and the town of Granby last week. It was signed by the town of Winter Park last night. So that you know the status, we are the last to be presented with the IGA. And based on the last combined meeting that we had with the town of Winter Park and Granby and the Board of County Commissioners and other concerned stakeholders, we have the changes included in this IGA to include the name. So the first item is that name there at the top. So you have the Fraser River Valley Housing Partnership. We also, the other change that was incorporated to this were the term limits, to limit those term limits to 3 4-year terms. And they also do have those staggered starts. So each municipality will appoint their board member, and at random draw, we're not sure who's going to do the draw yet, but 2 of those individuals will start at a 2-year term, and then we'll progress to a 4-year term after that. So if you start on a 2-year term, you can actually go to a 14 years of service. You can do 3 additional 4-year terms. So that was the discussion that was provided in that last combined meeting. So that is incorporated to here. And you also will see that the $20,000 dedication for the first year from each entity will be due January 30th, 2023. So those are funds dedicated to get this going. Whether or not a ballot initiative is successful, that those fees will, it's basically just, reserving those funds and providing those funds on January 30th, 2023, regardless, to try to push forward this initiative, whether or not it does have a primary funding mechanism. So, and I think Ed, you were gonna provide some comments with the.
Well, this has been an interesting process. We started this with a conversation between the mayor of Winter Park and Mayor of Fraser, probably as early as August, late August, early September of last year, of addressing the need within our region. We put together a work group. That work group has expanded through conversations with the county who needed to be part of that conversation because we did incorporate part of unincorporated Grand County. The footprint of the authority. Also, we found bisected a portion of Granby. Granby expressed some interest in being part of that and signed the MOU to be part of that organization to commit funds to the research and the development of the housing authority. And we've been meeting for every 2 weeks really since September, working out some of the details. We've had joint meetings. We've had a lot of conversations, a lot of consultants. The work group hired Holland and Hart, based in part because of their experience with forming IGAs and for housing authorities. We got a commitment from the Grand County of $10,000 to pay for those legal fees, and each of the three entities, Granby, Fraser, and Winter Park, all committed to $50,000 to pay for those startup and those reports that need to be done, the studies. We've applied for and received grants. For example, Michael most recently received a Rhoda grant for $48,000 to do the housing needs assessment study. We have been in contact with polling agencies, PR firms. In fact, we've got another meeting scheduled this Friday for our working group, where we'll be addressing contract proposal from Magellan, who is the polling firm. Magellan has worked with organizations like Vail and Breckenridge on various ballot initiatives. We've also been in contact with the company called Turnkey, which has done a lot of work in Grand County for marketing and public relations and getting the message out about the benefits of the housing authority and so forth. We're under a timeline. There's a certification of the ballot question that's going to occur sometime around September the 9th. So between the formation of the IGA, or this housing authority, and September 9th, there'll be some active polling. And the polling is not necessarily asking people, are you in favor of this or not? I mean, that is one of the questions that will be asked, but the polling is, as described by Magellan, was also an educational tool where we measure the pulse of the community, their assessment of the needs. It's also a training tool while you're assessing that, you're educating the public and then asking for their opinions at the same time. PR firm Turnkey has helped Grand County with ballot initiatives. I think they recently were part of the East Grand Fire ballot initiative to work on getting that passed. So between the formation of the authority and September 9th, there's a lot of work that still needs to be done. Our working group is expecting to continue to work on this project, work with the new board of this housing authority to do the legwork and continue the legal work, the polling, the PR, phrasing that ballot question for the new authority board. The IGA that was presented at the joint meeting, like I said, Michael's already gone over those changes. The $20,000 commitment, that was bumped up from a $10,000 initial commitment for a couple of reasons. Number one, we want to make sure that this authority had a good chance of success, but also we felt that if there is any kind of delays as far as any kind of ballot measure or what that looks like, we want to make sure that they had sufficient funds to continue the work. I will point out that the Housing Authority, this IGA creates a subdivision of the Colorado government. It's an independent organization. They'll have their own board of directors. They'll have their own bylaws. They have certain powers granted by the state, including proposing ballot initiatives. They also have authorities to do things like rehabilitate. They can have bonding authority as well. You're creating a separate form of government at that point. And that separate form of government is then responsible for the housing initiatives within this region. Let's see. I would imagine that one of the questions that's come up quite a bit is the success of a ballot initiative. As I've said before, there's really no guarantee about a success of a ballot initiative. There's no guarantee that an incumbent could be reelected in any election. This authority will have the right to write that ballot initiative. And I assume that they would be using the polling data, and they would be using the marketing firm as well to write an effective ballot measure. We don't know what that ballot measure looks like. Maybe the polling says that instead of a mill levy, it needs to be an impact fee or a sales tax and so forth. That's a question for the authority that once it's formed at the end of the day. So that's kind of a rundown. I'm proud of the work that everyone's been doing to put this together. I am proud of Grand County getting on board with this. I was actually monitoring the Granby meeting last week when they discussed this in detail. And quite frankly, some of the concerns that they had were the same concerns that we voiced as well. Will a ballot measure pass? What about a mill levy? What's that going to do to our property taxes? Those kind of things. But I was really taken by the fact that the biggest proponent of that initiative in Granby was the mayor of Granby. He said that he had his doubts before that meeting, but he was really proposing that those doubts, he was much more assured that of the success of this organization. And I was also impressed by the trustee from Mountain Parks Electric, who at the joint meeting was talking about ballot measures, but he was fully on board as well. So yeah, there's a lot of questions, and a lot of concerns, but and that's why we're having this meeting tonight. So I'll stop talking. I'll let the board continue at this point.
I guess I had a question about who stands to benefit the most from this partnership. I mean, is it going to go more towards the Granby area that have more space, or maybe more property that's developable or suitable for affordable housing? How do we make sure that we get our fair share, or Winter Park, and how does that work? That's divided up equally, or
that's a good fair question. It's a good fair question. Granby had the same conversation. Where's the housing going to go? There was comments, we don't want all the housing here in Granby. It needs to be spread throughout the region.
Well, we want it here.
Yeah, we definitely
we want some here.
Yeah.
Well, we can get it.
Yeah.
So that, the appointment process for those board members is important to keep in mind. And they do serve at the will of that entity. So, for example, if the town of Fraser appoints a board member to be on this larger regional housing authority, and they feel like they're not reflecting the needs of the Fraser community and not voicing those concerns, let's say location, for example, and trying to provide that good balance of where housing is going and where it's being provided, they serve at will of the municipality. I understand the IGA. So something to consider there. There will be that line of communication between the municipalities and those board members, and so there will be that layer of
yeah, there's no formula there that in the IGA that says it's all going to go here or here. I think all of us in the working group have envisioned that the affordable housing whether that be workforce housing, whether it be affordable deed restricted housing, really needs to be throughout that whole region. A lot of it has to do with availability of land, price of land, price of construction, and so forth. But there's certainly needs here in this region. There's needs as well in Granby. I think one of the things that I heard from Ted Cherry, who was here tonight, you know, they have some of the similar struggles with workforce availability in their businesses as well. I think Ted's comment was he'd like to be able to go to the come and go after 5 o'clock at night, still be able to fill up his car with gas, but you know, wants to make sure that there's sufficient employees to provide for the needs of the community. So there's a need throughout the region.
Right. I mean, you know, people do commute,
Yeah.
Granby to here in Winter Park, but that just increases the amount of traffic and congestion. So, you know, definitely want to try to minimize that kind of expense.
I think the transit system that we have right now is going to be vital to any affordable housing option. You know, to be able to transport people from where they live to where they work and back and forth. And we just had a work session talking about the availability of parking, and we want people to move toward, you know, the bus option as well.
When we first started talking about this, it was Fraser and Winter Park, where we were more confident of a ballot issue passing. And then Granby asked to be involved and didn't show much promise of a ballot issue passing. Has that changed? Ted, could you talk to that issue?
Hi, Ted Cherry, the town manager in Granby. Yeah, so when the first original project was brought forward, at least to my attention, it was to include the Fraser Valley Recreation District, which does include a portion of Granby. So we were going to have to be involved with it if it was that boundary. I think my board is in a 6-1 vote. They are very confident that we can move forward with this and hopefully gather the votes that are needed to get this to move forward. You know, housing is a need about getting homes for people and getting kids into our schools and making sure that we are accomplishing the needs that all of the business community have in front of them. So I think with the combined support of everybody involved and knowing what sort of the data comes back to see what is palatable to people, yeah, I do think that it's doable, and I don't think that we should be terribly concerned about just the Granby portion. So,
Ted, if the polling comes back and it looks not so good in Granby, do you feel that the Granby board would voluntarily step back from this housing authority so that we could pass this in the first year?
Yeah, I think would definitely need to be some conversations that we need to be had, but at that point in time, I think that you're probably too far along to unravel things before a ballot initiative for the November timeframe. So, you know, that would be a question for my elected officials, but yeah, we certainly can entertain a conversation. But again, I don't believe that there should be an issue on the Granby side.
Is there a possibility of having multiple ballot issues? And then after the election, we would know where we would have support.
So you're asking if there could be multiple funding questions on the housing authority? In other words, would you support a mill levy? Would you support a?
No, I was thinking of location. Like a ballot issue for Fraser Winter Park and another one for Granby. And we would execute this after the election.
But we can't because they're the ones that have to present it, right? The housing authority. It's their
Yeah.
question. It's not our question.
And those are kind of
that how I
some sticky
interpret that?
legal questions. I mean, you're given the authority, the ability to do that.
Yeah.
I don't think either if you set up the authority that you could segregate that region and say, okay, this ballot only measures to a portion of that region either. Interesting question.
Well, I was actually thinking of having Fraser Winter Park having a ballot issue and Granby having a ballot issue without the housing authority involved. Then afterwards, having the housing authority established based on the results of that election.
That's what's up. I like that idea. Can that happen?
I don't think it-
You'd have to dedicate that stream
Something,
to the housing authority.
right? It would be individual towns or Winter Park and Fraser, you have in Granby. Then you'd have to have another vote, I think, to combine the two.
I think you run the risk of confusing
Right.
the population,
Yeah.
you know, about a ballot initiative and multiple ballot initiatives that, you know, apply to some people, but it doesn't apply to others.
It kind of defeats the purpose of having an intergovernmental agreement.
It
You
it
wanna split it
does.
up.
It does.
But how many, what's the population of Granby versus here versus Winter Park? I mean, if you have a ballot initiative with all the regions put together, is the population in Granby great enough that it could, you know, offset?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, definitely.
Over 2,000
So
registered
that's-
voters.
It's gonna pass in Winter Park and Fraser.
Well, what's our doubt that it's gonna pass in Granby? I mean, all the
That's
people I
what
know
I
in
do.
Granby are for it, but that, I know all the real estate agents, so that's
Right.
follow people, right?
Yeah.
So,
I guess the doubt came from the joint meeting that we had.
Exactly.
When their trustees, and not one of them could stand up and say, I believe that this could pass it. Is where the doubt.
gotcha.
came from. So
They were
I-
actually
when-
shaking their heads.
Yeah, they, well.
And
two
the
of-
county
two of them
commissioner.
have. So,
And the mayor didn't
and
say a word.
Fraser and Winter Park definitely said, I mean, Brian said it, I said it, Nick said it. So that's the doubt. I mean,
So that,
that's where the doubt came from, is that at that joint meeting, they're the representatives of the town of Granby.
Yeah.
One of them actually said they didn't think, which is the Mountain Parks Electric guy, whatever.
Chris.
well, if
Said
we,
that it would not.
if we work on the kids angle of keeping your kids in the valley, they might change their minds because they have the most kids in the school. With the Granby families. And it's all about how we present it to them, how we get out there and talk, and we have to promote it as much as the people in Granby do, that we want them to be part of this. And if we don't do that, then they're gonna feel like, oh, you're just trying to get us to fund your housing projects.
I think that's important to keep in mind. You know, if this was a town of Fraser ballot initiative for a sales tax increase and so forth, the town could be, is prohibited from going out there and encouraging everybody to vote for that. But a separate housing authority developed under this IGA would allow the individual towns and even the county to get out there and beat the bushes as well to support that initiative. You know, this, like I said, there's no guarantee, but, you know, with effective polling, with effective education, effective communication, it's no guarantee still, but you improve your chances of a successful ballot measure.
Yeah. And if it doesn't pass, then they can try to run again. the
They
ballot
certainly
measure
can.
In the future.
Why would we start knowing it?
Yeah.
It's gonna fail.
But we
Why would
don't-
we put all
Well,
this-
but we
we don't
don't know
know
it's
that
gonna fail. We don't know that. That's my
Because
thought.
we're in
But we
Fraser
have
and it won't
serious
fail here.
questions.
Right.
Well,
So-
personally, I'm in support of it. I think the other,
I think we're all in support of
Yeah.
it for sure.
We
I
just
think
want it
everybody
passed.
everybody
We
at
just
this
want it passed.
table
yeah,
believes that we need affordable housing.
Yeah.
It's that we want to start out with succeeding, not creating another government entity that is not effective. So if they don't have funding, it's not going to be effective. Is the issue. So that's my concern. But I'm 100% in favor of.
Maybe we can get the school to do a work project for the kids. And take it home.
well, if we're gonna put it on the ballot, we need to make a decision. and it either happens now or doesn't go to ballot. That's, I think, the bottom line.
September 9th is the deadline. for
Right. Yeah, but it's
So
still,
that's
there's
not-
a lot of work to
that's
do.
not tonight.
That's not
Well, you've got to educate, whatever.
So an additional resource that'll also be available this year, we do have Magellan who'll be doing the study as far as like polling, trying to see where people lie and what they're willing to pay for, what they're willing to give in order to get housing. Then we have that second firm, the
Turncoat? No.
Turncourt.
Turncoat.
They are the PR firm that actually will roll out PR up to the ballot initiative, work on the ballot initiative language, and from that polling from Michelle, I'll be able to drive the best polling language that works. And that a third resource that'll be employed as well is we are doing this housing needs assessment study. So being able to identify the need, like everyone can say there's a need for affordable housing, but we'll actually have quantitative data that says here's the need for affordable housing in different communities. So those three tools will be able to be interlaced to be able to effectively, I think, provide that education piece and informing the public on that as well. So, I mean, from our standpoint with these boundaries that have been identified, this is the highest likelihood to success for a ballot initiative. Nothing's guaranteed, of course, but they have the same problems for housing in Granby as they do in different parts of Fraser and Winter Park. And sharing that pool of resources and the mentality of having that larger tax base and having that larger number of collaborators that can work and help facilitate these projects in different areas of the valley where it helps everyone out. That's just kind of in the mindset. But I just want to kind of discuss that tool and how these tools kind of play together a little bit with that. So those will be deployed this summer. We do have funding. We do have grant funding. And we anticipate that to be a well-used tool to drive forward that ballot initiative.
So one of the examples that Turnkey used, and it came up in our last work session, when they were doing a ballot initiative, I think it might have been for the East Grand Fire or one of the others, maybe it's a school, they actually had an animated little cartoon video that got distributed in social media and so forth. And that, from what I hear, that did a lot to get people engaged and involved and educated and want to know more about that. So it's not just a matter of just plastering a bunch of posters out, but it's a campaign. It's a full-fledged campaign to ensure or put ourselves in the best position for success.
When will the results from the polling be finalized?
We should have anticipated based on that tomorrow when we actually receive a proposal from Magellan for that polling data. And they provided us an overview of what that data can look like and how it can be used. And basically they're kind of claim to fame and why they're an effective firm for this type of work is they work with just dozens of municipalities throughout the state for different ballot initiatives to tell them whether or not they should even pursue a ballot initiative. If you're looking at a mill levy, for example, what mill is going to sit the best, is going to be the most digestible by the public, and just they're pretty good at their percentage, their anticipated percentage of approval. It's pretty close to what the actual ballot initiative comes out to be. So that's the value of that tool that we will be deploying this summer is. Where are the challenges? How can we tailor this information campaign to inform the public of what we're trying to do, the challenges we're trying to address, what types of products we're looking to deploy, what they can anticipate for the type of product. It's really just that informational piece. And here's the expectation of what we're trying to do is what we do.
So we reached out to Magellan originally because we were trying to do some research. There was a ballot measure in Vail that they were going to try to determine whether or not to pass a 1% sales tax to support affordable housing. They hired Magellan, who oversaw that. I think they projected that the turnout would be 54% of the population will be in favor, and that's just exactly where the vote came in and the measure passed.
So Magellan's going to have all that information tomorrow?
No,
Just
Putting a proposal to the work group tomorrow.
Okay, I was like,
Yeah.
what?
Yeah.
All right.
So, and the grant isn't necessarily the town of Fraser, it's for this working group. Is that
It's
correct?
for the regional district that's
Regional
been
district.
identified in the
So
IGA.
if we approve the regional district, they're still gonna be looking at all that information to see if it's worth putting a question out.
Right.
On the ballot. So tonight, we're not saying, yes, we're approving a ballot measure. We're,
We
creating
can't, we
this-
can't approve.
right,
ballot
I know, because there
It's
isn't
not,
one.
it's not our, it's not,
But-
it would be that entity.
Yeah, right, but we're approving this entity's formation so that they can carry on separate from the town and do all this research, because that's what they want. They want to see the success. We'll have representatives from our town on it.
We're appropriating money though for it, right?
Everybody
correct.
is. Well, we have
That
already.
first year, yes.
Have we already done that or this is gonna,
This
year.
would, this would be part of appropriations for 2023.
we've already approved it for this year.
No, we haven't approved that
For
yet.
next-
That will be in the budget process this fall. That's the appropriation for the support for this IGA in 2023. We have already committed through the MOU financial support this year using funds from our community housing fund to divert up to $50,000 to support the work needed for this four-party organization to do things like the housing needs assessment study, to do the legal review for putting the IGA and the bylaws in place. And it will be used as well for offset some of those costs for the polling and the PR work.
I mean, wouldn't it be good to have the polling information before we decide whether we include all the municipalities within the region? I mean, if the polling data shows that it's not likely to pass in Granby, then maybe we should peel them off and just do it for Winter Park and Fraser. I mean, I don't know.
I think the issue we're going to find is the polling data will not give us the opportunity to put anything on the ballot measure in 2022. By the time the polling is done, we've kind of cut that time limit.
But
in
we'll
half.
know that information tomorrow. Correct?
For the anticipated timeline, we
Yeah.
expect that. I mean, we had some discussions with the gentleman this morning. And he anticipated beginning work after Memorial Day weekend. And we'll, in his proposal, he'll provide what his anticipated timeline is for completion, so we can meet those dates too.
I think that you hit exactly what everybody else, at least in this board, concern is that if the polling comes back that it's not going to pass, then
Why spend the money?
yeah, right.
And
Maybe,
Yeah.
maybe
Yeah.
we
it's over.
decide just to do it for Fraser and Winter Park and cut Granby out or something. I mean, I'm not trying to cut Granby out, but
Yeah, we want it
if
to
they're gonna
succeed.
they're gonna sink the initiative, the ballot initiative, then
And that's just a guess. I mean. the
Right,
people I've
that's
talked to
why-
in Granby, the people I know in Granby, they needed pulling housing as much as we did. Especially with River Run coming in, they come summertime, they don't have enough employees. They don't have enough people to service all those people coming in.
But there's other voters besides the ones you're talking
No,
to.
absolutely, I can't talk to everybody.
And it's over 4 months until
Right.
the ballot needs to be certified.
Yeah, let's just gather a little more information. We'll have that information tomorrow and bring it back to our next meeting.
table it till the
Yeah.
next meeting.
I think the only information that they'll have available after this is timelines.
Yeah,
That's
what we want.
That's fine.
You want to take public comment?
Sure. Sure.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So Nick Katrumbis, mayor in Winter Park and business owner. So just to address a couple of comments, I think that there's tremendous value in the IGA. Not only, you're talking about a ballot measure and potential funding mechanisms, but the IGA alone is what's allowing us to get grant funding, because there could be projects that come along quicker before the ballot measure is passed that we could go potentially to DOLA or to some of the other funding avenues. We would be higher up on the list to get funding compared to some of our other surrounding counties or housing authorities based on the coalition. So there's a tremendous value there. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, but when we try to do it independently, we're just competing with each other. So that's just a high level philosophical avenue or approach that I think is important to take. And then, you know, in the conversations that we've had with Granby, with the mayor in Granby, I think there's a lot of education that goes along with this. There was hesitancy from their board, and I think from some of their residents, because one comment that was made to me is they felt that it would be supporting seasonal housing for Winter Park Resort. And I just want to remind everybody that that's really not what the initiative is here. It's for year-round residents, also retirement too. And the only way that we can achieve that is to kind of set those goals and establish the philosophy of this new board by maintaining, you know, and pushing forward projects that address those concerns. So from my perspective, I think it's important to keep pushing these studies forward. The IGA with all of the municipalities in the county is critical to that. The ballot measure in November, you know, whether it passes or not, it certainly has a higher chance of passing if we all stand behind it. So I think that those are conversations that we can continue to have. I'm a little concerned just in hearing just Winter Park and Fraser talking about a different ballot initiative, because I'm not sure that Winter Park would be in support of that. So we need to know what that looks like and what the impact is. And furthermore, if it's beyond a 2 mil, like we talked about, I would be concerned on how difficult it would be to extend the housing authority into Granby at a later time. So those conversations, regardless of who's involved with the housing authority, can still happen. And I think we all have independent housing authorities anyways. So you have an opportunity to look at other funding mechanisms independently. So I think that once again, you know, what's so important here is the education piece. This is the first time I think that Winter Park, Granby, Fraser, and the county have really engaged in a coalition, if you will. This is uncharted territory, but from, you know, I like to listen to our staff and to all of the work that everybody's done on this. And I think ultimately when you get the information that comes back from the consultants, they're gonna, I don't think that the needs are very different from one community to the other. So again, if the goal is to create year-round housing for our residents to support our businesses, then, you know, I think we need to have a larger district, because you're ultimately it comes down to feasibility. The other thing is there's other community foundations that are probably watching what the status of the IGA is, because we're going to need funding from other avenues as well. And most of the nonprofit community is a big part of that, I think, as you know. And that nonprofit community foundation doesn't have any borders. So the more that we include in the coalition, the better chance we have to solve this problem, right? It's very difficult to do it independently, and we know that in Winter Park. It's very, very expensive. And again, it's the chance that we give ourselves to create a sustainable funding source to leverage those dollars is absolutely critical to get the next project moving. So those are my comments. But again, I think that there needs to be a lot more work done in terms of the education piece to get everybody on the same page. Okay.
Nick, before you sit down, isn't the ski area doing some kind of dormitory housing that they're going to develop this year or next year?
Yeah, the ski area has submitted plans to the town. You know, our council hasn't reviewed them, but I believe our staff has, and they understand that the needs for the ski area is different than it is for the rest of our community.
Yeah. So that should help too with the town.
Oh yeah, but what you're seeing is for the first time ever, we're having a conversation with all of the communities, including the county, and that wasn't always the case. I mean, it was hard to get the ski area to budge on their own housing. So, and I understand, and I agree with some of the comments that were made. I mean, this is like I said, uncharted territory, but we're not reinventing the wheel either. we're replicating what other regional housing authorities have done. And I think that there's been a lot of work done in studying those housing authorities, and they've seen success. They have projects in motion. And I think our goal needs to be to get 1 or 2 projects every year, once we have the funding available. But it's going to take some work. But we have to be unified to do it. And it's going to take more than what Winter Park currently has in terms of available funds to keep pushing projects forward. So I think that's important to keep in mind. Okay. Any other questions for me?
Yep. Okay. Thanks, Nick. Anybody else from the public? Anybody online? Is there anybody online? Nope. Okay.
The ability to, once it's established, to tap into grant funds to help support this whole effort, the research and possibly projects. All this commits us to is $20,000 for next year, 2023. I personally would like to make a motion, and we'll just see if it passes or not.
Okay.
Okay to do that? Okay, I would like to make a motion to approve resolution 2022-0408, approving an IGA establishing the Fraser Valley Housing Partnership.
It's Fraser River. It's a typo in there.
Fraser Valley. Thank you.
Second.
Okay, roll call.
No, I'd like that. Eileen Waldo, no, I'd like to wait 2 weeks.
I will, yes. I think, the ballot initiative is not the only source of funding, right? We have a better chance of getting grants and stuff if we're unified. I think it's worth a shot. I will, yes.
Katie Fisher, I'm going to vote no, table it for 2 weeks.
Brian Zirkmanek, yes.
I second it.
Katie Souls,
You still have
yes.
to.
Oh, sorry. Parnell Quinn,
You
yes.
could change your mind. So the vote obviously is carried.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks to all for the
Thank you,
hard
guys.
work
We need to finish.
for serving on those committees.
Oh yeah, Katie Fisher. Or sorry, Katie Souls.
Yeah, Katie Souls.
Did I say Katie Fisher?
When I don't vote,
Yeah.
that's a yes. That's how
Yeah,
it
okay,
is. I've been in government for a while.
Okay,
Thank you, guys.
thank you.
All right, Granby, let's go. Glad you showed up tonight.
Yeah. And just get some grant dollars. I know there's federal funds available. for
Mayor,
research.
did you vote on that?
I voted yes.
Okay.
Byers Avenue water line replacement effects on service lines update.
All right. Thank you, Board. Russell Pennington, the Public Works Director. As you probably already know, that the town put out a water line project earlier this year, and we did not receive any bids on it. A couple of the notable and probably the 2 highest priorities of that project included the Byers Avenue water line replacement and the bathrooms near the Lions Ponds. Since when the bids did not come in, staff along with the town's consultant, Merrick Engineers, discussed. We called a number of contractors that were that were interested during the process, and asked them why and if they would still be interested in any parts or pieces of it, etc. And a number of them came back and just said, no, they're not interested. I mean, they're busy down in the Front Range, logistics getting up here, the cost of construction, etc. But through the process, we did find 3 different contractors that are interested in our projects. One, thank you, Parnell, for Lucas Schleicher. Is that correct? Yeah. So I met with him. He respectfully declined, said he was too busy as well. But we do have 3 other companies that are interested right now, provided plans, we're in discussions with them right now. And as well as with American Engineering as far as providing further project management on these type of projects going forward. So that's the Buyers Avenue kind of update there.
Okay, so we've got it for buyers.
Well,
Hopefully.
we have
Interested.
3 right now. I'm going to be meeting with one contractor that is the other 2 were interested. They've taken the plans and look. I'm trying to get back with them. But one I'm meeting with, I do believe, on Friday, and they are extremely interested in the projects.
So with these contractors, would they be willing to work at the same time with individual homeowners on Buyers Ave, replacing their service lines?
That was going to be the goal. I mean, the goal was to get a contractor on board, have a community meeting, and get all the homeowners and discuss the property. The town also has a service line incentive program that we're going to offer to each one of them as well, and then have them directly contract with the contractor that we would have on site. So that's still the plan, but we just don't have a contractor right now.
So part of this question is the effects of our main on the service line. We have our residents here in the audience. Their service line froze, and dropping our main line is not going to solve their problem.
Yes, it will, if they replace their service line.
Yeah, that's
So
the
yeah,
that's the caveat.
Yeah,
It would. I'm just trying to educate that.
Well,
when it goes into it's lower there, you're going to have to replace. Correct. So
Right.
I'm just want to make sure you guys understood that.
Yeah.
It's a 2-part problem.
Yeah. Okay.
There's the town
Yeah.
part and our part, and they're both antiquated and too shallow.
Yeah. Okay. I just wanted to make sure you guys understood that you can't just rehook into the line. It's not. It's going to be. You're going to be okay. 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 Any other questions on?
So
You have to come up, sir. You have to come up
here we go.
and state your name.
call it Berkeley George, 117 Byers Avenue. Directed to Russell. So we have a couple of people that are interested in, is the timeline possibly for this year, or are we talking next 2020?
No, the goal is this year.
Okay.
Yeah, that is the goal. Yeah.
Okay, great. Any other questions, comments on?
And I guess, I'm sorry, to clarify, and this is, what you're talking is strictly on the Byers water line. This is not regarding the sewer line for the bathroom and the ponds.
Correct.
Well, these contractors are going to be, we're talking to about all our projects.
Okay, so would this be a combined or separate, or not sure at this time?
Not sure.
Not sure.
Yeah, we're breaking it into parts and pieces.
Okay.
Asking what they're interested in, what we can do. Here's our 2 priorities, and going forward there.
Thank you.
Okay. Any others on
Mr. Souls? got
the
any
buyer's line? No. Okay. Next is the
comments? Thank you.
oh,
Thank you. But he can keep going.
what? Next is the Cousins Open Space Bathroom update.
So the same water line project. This project was part of that. So with these 3 companies that are still interested, we are proceeding with them with trying to get this project done as well. The contractor that I'm meeting with again on Friday is very interested in this project. So and in fact, they were actually talking, that was their priority as far as the one they're most interested in, as well as getting bids. And we might have a proposal from them by Friday. So they're a smaller company out of Grand Junction. They did not have the ability to bond for the approximately $1.5 million project that we put out to bid. So they are going to be able to bond for the individual parts and pieces. So that's what we're looking and start breaking it out. And working with them, and they will already be in the county because they're working for a developer in Winter Park, and so they're busy at times, and then they have nothing to do, so they're looking for projects to keep their crews here in the valley and busy. So they're so far they've been the most interested in the projects. The other 2 contractors are local contractors as well, but I'm still trying to get a meeting set with them in the next few days to try to get bids and interest in what they like and don't like. And of the entire project.
Okay, and then how does this affect the grant that we have received for?
Well, currently, if you have any specific questions, that's gonna be Catherine, but right now the deadline's by the end of this year. So that's what we're marching forward to get. So
So if we don't have this done this year, then the grant goes away
I've reached out to Greg Winkler and asked another extension
beyond this year.
beyond this year. I think that would be reasonable based on the
COVID.
situation.
Okay.
So we put money down on the restroom. We're waiting for the
yeah,
colors that have been selected, we're waiting for the finalized CDs ready to submit the permit.
Right.
Yeah, we're-
Eventually the COVID excuse is not going to work.
So this is
Oh.
about, we send it out for bids and.
When did
Yeah.
we send that out for bids?
this went out 1st of March, I do believe, and we
This
also. I'm sorry.
This past March?
Yes. Yeah, we put out the water and sewer to the bathroom this past March. 1st of April, we did not receive bids. We also put this out to bid a couple of years ago as well and didn't receive any bids on it either. So we thought we would package it with a larger project, approximately, like I said, an engineer's estimate of 1.5 million, but still no bids.
And that was the same time you put out the Buyers Avenue?
The Buyers Avenue went out this year too.
Okay,
Yeah.
March 1st.
Yeah.
And is Buyers Avenue the only street that needs this upgrade in Old Town Fraser at this time?
That is the priority right now. With the downtown or the older town area here, that is a shallow fire flow issues with that line as well. So that has been a priority for a couple of years now.
It's just West Buyers Avenue or East Buyers Avenue also?
Buyers Avenue from the railroad tracks over to Nordman.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
So with the bathroom though, we are marching as if we're going to get a bid and get somebody to do it. We got the preliminary drawings yesterday, reviewing those. The foundation work. We have an engineer designing the foundation and coordinating with Green Flush. We've secured, or at least we have a verbal securement of a contractor to build the foundation, do the concrete work. And so we're still working on the utilities right now. But again, I'm hoping to have that proposal from a contractor probably Friday. And I'm hoping to do the water and the sewer.
So this is playing back on our tap fee discussion earlier. This is the infrastructure that is failing everywhere in our town. It's part of the water. Wastewater has talked about it forever. We can't give up our tap fees. So, because our infrastructure is aging. It's past its expected lifespan. And so we need to figure out another way to incentivize affordable housing rather than our tap fees for sure. So, because it's failing.
It's getting older, and we're finding that the things that were installed a number of years ago were probably less than they were substandard construction.
A number, what's the number of years?
I don't know.
Okay,
I don't know
like in the
how.
last 5 years, last 20 years, or,
Oh, it's older than 20 years.
okay.
Yeah, no, a lot of this is 50 plus probably, some of this.
Okay, any other questions for Cousins Open Space Bathroom update? Thanks, Russell. Yeah, jump back up there.
So I've been living in this valley for 30 years. I was a contractor up here for over 15. I worked for many contractors, excavators. I think one thing that you need to look at with this Cousins project, you're going about it in a particular mindset and direction of running a sewer line between two bodies of water that is not necessarily feasible. There are other options for running sewer lines to tie in over to Safeway that might be more feasible. This is one of the major reasons why the contractors have not bid on this project. I've talked to them. I know several of them in this valley. This is one of the major issues that is going on. And I think if this doesn't work out, that there might be some other options to route that line that might be more feasible. So I just wanted to put that in there. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
I would have to disagree with that. We've talked to a number of contractors, that would talk to us. I mean, one contractor said this project is not technically challenging. The contractor that's giving us a bid tomorrow or Friday said they don't have a problem with it either. We've worked with the water and sanitation district that we can lower the 2 pond levels. That was the only question during the pre-bid. We had a number of contractors that were online and gave them an option to voice any concerns or anything like that. And there were no concerns with this issue other than can you lower the water line or the water levels in that area? The response to the contractors was, yes, we can. We worked with that water district and we can augment that water with our own water sources at another location. And so all the contractors that we talked to, I did not voice any concerns with that issue. So,
Okay.
so
Thanks, Russell. Any other
All right.
questions before we move on?
It's good news. Thank you.
Okay. Next is the authorized users update for town accounts. So we need a motion. I have the motion if somebody wanna read that. Or give it to Lewis. Let Lewis go. Okay,
Yeah, I don't know who the blank is. Move to
that's
update.
you.
That's
Okay,
you.
Louis Gregory. Move to update authorized users to have access to the following town of Fraser accounts: Colorado Trust, US Bank, Bank of the West, Citywide Bank, United Bank, United Business Bank, by removing the previous finance manager, Beth Williams, and adding the current finance director, Rob Clemens. Rob Clemens will have full access to the accounts, but will not have check signing authority. So Beth was a manager and Rob's a director.
So Beth was our finance director and now Rob is our new finance director.
But it's different on here.
Technically, Beth's job title was finance manager. When we replaced her, we advertised for finance director. We elevated just the title to make it more appealing. But we also believe that they are in charge of a department. So let's give them that authority.
Yeah, that's fine. I didn't know if that was a typo or if that's someone got a promotion.
I'll second.
All in favor?
All right.
Opposed? Okay, open forum. So this is when the public can address the board. You have 3 minutes. Come up, state your name, if you live in the town of Fraser or not.
Berkeley George, 117 Byers Avenue. In regards to the Byers Avenue water main project, I just want to thank you all for your time and efforts working on this, and Russell for getting the bids together, and hopefully we have some stuff moving forward. And I'd just like to see if we could possibly put on the agenda for the next meeting just for an update of how things are progressing.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks, Berkeley.
Anybody else? Anybody online? No?
I have one thing before we get out. I can, I'll be fairly
Updates?
fast. So the Sustainable Communities Plan Working Group is meeting again on Friday, May 6th from 9 to 11. I'm going to be out of town and I was going to see if anyone of the board members would like to be there in my stead. Or Ed, if you're always gone, you're on Fridays, I'm assuming.
No, I'm here on Fridays. What is
So
the date again?
this was that Sustainable Community Plan
Mhm.
that involved the towns of Fraser, Winter Park.
What day and
Superior,
time
other-
is their next meeting?
And it is Friday, May 6th from 9 to 11. And I don't know for sure, but I'm guessing it's at the Winter Park Town Hall, but they are looking for a representative from Fraser.
Yeah, I can attend that.
You can do that one? Okay, great. Awesome, okay.
Any other updates?
Yeah, we had something come up at the water wastewater meeting last week? Our last meeting. Apparently there are, and this is something I'm bringing up now so that we can kind of talk about it probably in the work session in 2 weeks, but there are apparently 3 properties within the water district that have taps that don't have buildings on them, and they pay service fees on them. And one of those owners, voiced that they were fine paying service fees, but that the service fees had gone up over the years to now the point where he's paying $1,200 a year to not use any water whatsoever on the land. And the same with the other two property owners. So kind of bringing this up, one point that was made from someone with the town was that those service fees are in place to incentivize building on those properties. So saw two sides to this, but I thought I'd bring it up. If we want to discuss it, we can, but otherwise we can kind of bring that up in 2 weeks during the work session and kind of as we're going through building code and whatnot, kind of discuss it a little bit more.
Were these buildings that had, did they have buildings on them at one time, or did they build it
No,
to build a building on?
I
it?
don't believe they've ever had.
They can relinquish their caps and not pay
Exactly.
those fees.
And
That's
then,
the answer to the question.
and
Yes.
then
Have they
repay
paid the tap
the
fee already?
tap fee.
Yeah,
Yes.
you pay
Yeah.
the tap fee and then you're obligated to pay the service fee.
So they've
it's
already
just-
paid the tap fee. So if they let them go, they're gonna have to pay the
Yeah.
tap fee again.
And so what people did is they bought taps because they knew the fees were going up. And so they bought them when they were really low, hoping that they would build by the time they.
But the town hasn't allowed that.
No, we don't let that. I wasn't
So
saying-
no one can do that in the future? Is that what you're
Do
saying?
it right now.
Right.
I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, okay.
That's a gamble that didn't pay off. I guess.
Okay,
Yeah.
any other updates?
That's it for me.
Okay, Andy is on, what is it? Is it the Northwest? What is the board? He's not, you're on TPR now. It's
Yeah.
Northwest Council of Governments. Is that the one that Andy serves on?
The watershed.
The water, no, what?
COG.
I know he's on COG board.
Yeah, council, yeah. So
Okay.
we're gonna have to find somebody to replace him for that board, and it's imperative that we have representation at that. We gotta find out which board he's on
I
for
think it's
sure.
Northwest COG.
Yeah, that's what I thought. So, and then we're gonna need a volunteer that's willing to go to those. Yeah, to serve on that. So let's not, it's not for this meeting, but think about, just giving you, put it in your brain to think
Isn't
about
that a
it. for-
quarterly meeting obligation?
I don't know.
And
It
what
is, and they do have,
Is it a transportation?
Council
Either
of
in
Governments,
place or-
Northwest Local Governments.
I've been attending these, but we really need a trustee.
So keep that on your radars for next time, because
Well,
we're gonna need
maybe-
we're gonna need a volunteer, and if you're
Okay.
not here next meeting, we will actually appoint you.
Yeah. The, maybe send out a link about the organization. of the board.
Okay,
Yeah.
any other updates?
I have one. We have been looking at possible dates for a board retreat in June. We've reached out to the Headwaters Center. Some of those dates that we looked at were in early June. There's a couple of days, but those dates that they said they're available, these are all days, June the 6th, the 9th, the 13th. The 6th and the 13th are Mondays. The 9th is a Thursday. We haven't had a retreat in some time. Some of the topics that we're looking to discuss is board priorities for 2023. We also would like to talk about, drawing a blank, right? You remember the other? Oh, yeah, maybe bring Sursa in again to do some governance training like we've done in the past. We also would like to talk at some point about it, and this June may not be the best time to do that. Discuss whether or not to have a strategic planning session for the town, so we can establish what our goals and a vision and those mission statements are. That could be a lot to ask in a one-day retreat.
Yeah.
Be something we can look at maybe in a fall retreat as well. But if you have any suggestions or ideas for a retreat, or if those dates
Did you say
work or
June
don't work.
6th?
Pardon me?
Did you say June 6th was one of the dates?
June the 6th, which is a Monday, the June the 9th, which is a Thursday, and June 13th, which is also a Monday. I don't think they have any weekend dates available.
I don't, do we need the Headwaters Center?
Do it at the bar.
Do it
We could
someplace
do
else.
it, we could do it, we could do it, right? Seems
We could do it right here.
seems
This room's a little
expensive.
warm in June,
Yeah.
in the middle of the day.
And then, yeah, it's also busy season. We're back into busy season for
Yeah.
me. I mean,
It's
I'm
getting
on
into
these-
birthday territory for the Souls
Slam.
and Fisher families. Also.
Yeah.
It's like-
Those days are fun.
I like the idea of a Saturday retreat myself.
I make any day work. Yeah,
You don't? No, I don't.
at least busy
My
on
weekends
Friday.
are full
Yeah,
already.
You
Yeah.
got kids and you got kids and Saturdays are for kids.
In May, it would be better than June.
May would be way
Um,
better, I think, for everybody, for
Yep.
me and. depending on
Definitely.
What's
your
that?
bus- I think May would be better for me. I know it's closer, but June
What?
just gets so busy.
Not for me, but depending on when in May.
Yeah.
You're going, leaving us already?
Well, we've got a couple of things planned, but we could, the 16th or the 20th could work.
I could reach back out to Headwaters and see what dates could be available to May and email it out to the board to see.
How much does Headwaters cost?
Didn't get a price from her. I asked her, and the weekends they charge $350.
So we don't need that.
We
much
don't
room.
need
Go to the historic church and what's
I
happening.
don't
now.
even
We
wanna
can do
be
it right
there.
here in our own community.
It's just a giant
That's a
room.
big giant, yeah.
Well, we could do that loft upstairs, which we've done some meetings up there. The
Speaking
loft,
of
their
Fraser.
loft upstairs there.
We have a church on the,
We do.
we could do it right here.
You know, doing it at the church, what's happening now might be a good place for it, because it's nice not to have it here because we fall into our
Let's do it at
roles
the
and
church.
mindsets.
The one
But
right
in
here,
church, what's happening now, that could work.
Eisenhower.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty open late May and. first
Yeah,
week or
it
so.
seems like a lot of spending. We're gonna have to, our town has, we need Ryan back because,
Cheap.
He's willing to come back and
yeah,
look, look over stuff
Have
with
to live
us.
in town, yeah.
okay.
All right,
Night,
thanks
thank
for
you.
coming.
Any other?
Yay.
Good night.
Water.
Water,
Yeah.
running water.
I let you use
Yeah.
my condoms. Sorry.
Okay, so did we able to narrow down dates at all?
Can we send out a poll?
I can send out a poll. Is there a week of May, a week or two of May that might work better, or a
Not
specific
Memorial Day.
day of the week?
Not Memorial Day. Prior
Well,
to that.
I'm
That's
gone
fine.
from the 22nd to the 26th, but that's it.
Well, I
Any
think
other
Lewis
days?
said the 16th to the
Yes,
20th
that
is
week of
good.
the 16th.
So the earlier part of May would be good, or the very end of May, but not.
I'm
here
already
all
gone the
May.
6th to the
First time
12th,
ever.
so middle of May?
Oh, we are a
Week
tough
of the
group to get
16th.
together, man.
Week of the 16th.
We'll look for availability.
I'm
In
totally
that,
available.
in that poll, we'll also poll for, topic ideas that you might have.
Cool. Okay, any other updates?
Oh.
Okay, I
Yeah,
don't
I'm
have
gone
the
the
change.
19th.
Executive session.
Well, is
Do we
Sarah
adjourn?
gonna,
Oh, yeah, I did.
Sarah's got an update.
I'm
Yeah.
waiting for Sarah.
Oh, I asked her.
Hi, Sarah.
You're muted.
She's laughing. It's a good thing.
It's my first time on Zoom ever. Good evening, everybody. I just want to give you a really brief update on our website. So if you go to our website and you click on Explore Fraser, it takes you to kind of a new homepage. The new URL is explorefrasercolorado.com. It's a little bit more vibrant and focuses on tourism and all other things. There's public art, there's transportation. So it's tourism, shopping, just basically things to do. So it's more based on, tourism info versus town info. And then I also wanted to remind everybody that Picnic in the Park starts June 28th. And also Fraser Mountain Mural Festival is August 5th through the 7th. And I'll give you more updates on that as we start planning more. So that's it.
Very good.
Nice.
Thank you, Sarah.
Sure.
Oh, beautiful photos.
Is that a new logo on top left?
Looks like it.
Look at that.
I'd assume Sarah.
That's our Explorer Fraser, not.
Okay.
Ah. Nice.
.com or,
Yep.
Okay,
yeah, was it .com?
We have to close
Still
this meeting,
Fraser
we're just gonna
Colorado.
always stay open. for the executive session.
somebody who wants to read this executive session?
Brian, does-
Brian.
Brian always wants to. Read it. So I left him in the seat.
I move to enter into an executive session for discussion of a personnel matter under CRS section 24-6402-4FL and not involving any specific employees who have requested discussion of the matter in open session regarding personnel, including town manager Ed Cannon.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So
Good night,
this,
Glenn.
Thank you.
good night. So this will be recorded because we won't have an attorney with you. And then just to let the billions of people that are online listening to us, that we will not be coming back and starting the recording. We will end the executive session and then adjourn the regular meeting because it's going to take 2 seconds, just so that people aren't hanging around waiting for us to adjourn.